You did everything right. You cut out the sugar, swapped your regular drinks for diet soda, and started reading every label at the grocery store, yet somehow the scale barely moved or even started trending the wrong way. This is the frustrating part of the journey that nobody really warns you about when you make the switch. The whole situation feels like it shouldn't be possible because you are consuming 0 calories and 0 sugar, but your body still reacts like you just downed a thick milkshake. Hunger comes roaring back an hour later while your cravings get louder, and eventually, your fat loss stalls in a way that makes you feel like your metabolism is completely broken. You are not broken, but something is happening inside your body that the 0 sugar label never mentions. And over the next few minutes, you are going to understand exactly what that is. Once you see how this process works, you will realize that fixing the issue is actually a lot simpler than the problem makes it sound. Think of your brain as a high-tech control room that has been running the exact same software for thousands of years. One of its oldest and most automatic jobs is managing how your body handles incoming sugar to keep your energy levels stable. The very second sweetness hits your tongue, whether that sweetness is real or fake, the control room fires off a massive signal to prepare for a sugar response. Your body starts releasing insulin before a single calorie even reaches your stomach, because the system is designed to be incredibly efficient. It isn't waiting for a confirmation email to see if the sugar is real, so it just assumes the worst and reacts immediately. Scientists call this the cephalic phase response, and it is easily one of the most misunderstood things happening in your body every time you crack open a diet soda. To visualize this, picture a local fire station where the alarm suddenly goes off and the firefighters immediately grab their gear and roll the truck out to fight a blaze. When they arrive at the scene, they find out there is no fire and nothing is actually burning, but the truck already left the station and the crew already burned through their energy. Now, they are just sitting outside an empty building with a lot of adrenaline and nowhere to put it. This is exactly what happens to your body on artificial sweeteners, because insulin ships out to handle a glucose flood that never actually shows up. Your blood sugar dips in response to insulin that had no real job to perform. And now your brain enters a mild state of panic while trying to fix a blood sugar problem it created itself. It starts sending out loud hunger signals that have nothing to do with your actual nutritional needs, and instead, they are just trying to correct the mismatch your diet soda caused. This explains why you might drink a diet soda at lunch and find yourself standing in front of the fridge an hour later without even knowing what you were looking for. It isn't a failure of your willpower, but rather a fire alarm going off in a building that isn't even on fire. The problem doesn't just stop with hunger, because there is a second layer to this process that most people never hear about. Recent studies on sweeteners like sucralose and saccharin have uncovered something pretty uncomfortable, which is that they can start altering your gut bacteria within just a few days. When your gut microbiome shifts like that, it changes the fundamental way your body handles glucose. Some people become measurably more glucose intolerant after drinking these regularly, which means their bodies start storing fat more aggressively, even if they aren't eating more total calories. The drink itself might have 0 sugar, but the downstream effect on your metabolism is anything but 0. Then you have the reward system in your brain, and this part of the process is almost cruel in how it functions. Artificial sweeteners are anywhere from 200 to 600 times sweeter than regular table sugar, and every time you drink something that intense, your brain recalibrates its definition of sweetness. A piece of fruit starts registering as barely worth the effort, and your threshold for sweetness climbs so high that real food stops satisfying the signal. You aren't just dealing with one bad afternoon after a single soda, but you are actually dealing with a pattern your body gets trained into over time. Each 0 sugar drink quietly raises the floor on how much stimulation your brain needs to feel satisfied, and that cycle doesn't just loosen up on its own. Now that you know what is going wrong inside the control room, we need to look at the part most people skip, which is the fact that everyone's body reacts to this differently. This is where things get personal, because the latest research proves that these drinks don't affect everyone in the same way. Your gut microbiome acts as the ultimate gatekeeper in this scenario. You could have two people drinking the exact same diet soda every day for a month, and they would walk away with two completely different sets of results. While one person might see their insulin response barely move, the other person's gut bacteria could shift so much that their metabolism starts acting like they have pre-diabetes. This means their body begins storing fat more easily and struggling to manage blood sugar, which leaves them feeling much hungrier than their actual food intake would ever justify. Scientists categorize these two groups as responders and non-responders, but the most frustrating part is that you usually won't know which group you belong to until the damage starts showing up on the scale. If you happen to be a responder, the issues go much deeper than just feeling hungry. When your gut microbiome gets thrown out of balance, fat begins to pile up in places where it shouldn't be, and that includes your liver. Having fat in the liver is a primary driver of insulin resistance, which makes your body get worse at using food for energy and better at shoving it into storage. You might be cleaning up your diet and staying consistent with your habits, yet the weight refuses to move because a hidden variable has been working against you behind the scenes the entire time. If that sounds like the situation you are dealing with right now, it is actually more common than most people realize. The good news is that the fix is not nearly as complicated as it feels. Your body didn't get stuck in this metabolic trap overnight, but it can start to reverse the process much faster than you might expect. Once you finally remove artificial sweeteners from your routine, that cephalic phase response, which is basically your body's internal fire alarm, stops being so sensitive. Your brain eventually stops bracing for a massive sugar hit every time you take a sip of something, which means your insulin stops spiking for no reason. Your hunger signals will finally start to reflect when you actually need food, instead of being a weird metabolic correction your body was making for no reason at all. From a practical standpoint, plain water is the best swap you can make because it gives your brain absolutely nothing to misread. Sparkling water is another great option that works the same way. If you really need some flavor in your life, drinks sweetened with monk fruit or small amounts of real fruit trigger a much weaker response because the sweetness isn't as intense. Since the context is different, your brain doesn't feel the need to go into full preparation mode. Within just a few weeks of cutting out the fake stuff, your gut bacteria can begin shifting back toward a healthy balance. As inflammation drops and your insulin sensitivity gets better, fat loss that felt totally stuck can finally start moving again. This doesn't happen because you did anything dramatic to your diet, but simply because that false alarm stopped going off 3 times every single day. The problem was never about your willpower or a lack of discipline. It was about a specific signal your brain fired every time it tasted fake sugar, and a nutrition label on a can was never going to explain that to you. For the next 2 weeks, try cutting out artificial sweeteners entirely and just pay attention to how you feel. Most people find that their hunger levels calm down and their cravings get much quieter a lot faster than they ever anticipated. Your body naturally wants to find its balance, but it needs you to stop triggering the alarm first. If this helped you understand zero sugar drinks a little better, hit the subscribe button. There is a lot more happening inside your body that you aren't being told about.